From ancient scrolls to modern classics, welcome to Whispers of Japanese Tales.
Gauche the Cellist by Miyazawa Kenji. Gauche was in charge of playing the cello at the town cinema. However, he had a reputation for not being very skilled. In fact, not only was he considered unskilled, but he was actually the worst among his fellow musicians, and he was always scolded by the conductor. In the afternoon, everyone gathered in the dressing room, forming a circle to practice Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, which they would perform at the upcoming town concert. The trumpet was playing with all its might. The violins were singing like two colored winds. The clarinet also joined in with a deep, resonant tone to support the ensemble. Gauche, with his lips tightly pressed and his eyes wide like plates, stared intently at the sheet music and played with all his might. Suddenly, the conductor clapped his hands sharply. Everyone stopped playing instantly, and the room fell silent. The conductor shouted. The cello was late. Te-te-te, te-te-te, start over from here. Ready? Everyone restarted from a little before the previous section. Gauche, his face flushed red and sweat forming on his forehead, somehow managed to get through the section he had just been called out on. Relieved, he continued playing, but the conductor suddenly clapped his hands sharply again. Cello, the strings are out of tune. This is a problem. I don't have time to teach you the basics of do-re-mi. Everyone looked at him sympathetically, pretending to examine their own sheet music or pluck at their instruments as if to distract themselves. Gauche hurriedly adjusted his strings. This was indeed partly Gauche's fault, but the cello itself was also in rather poor condition. From the previous measure, ready? Everyone started again. Gauche, twisting his lips in determination, played with all his might. This time, they made considerable progress. Just as Gauche began to think things were going well, the conductor, with an intimidating expression, suddenly clapped his hands sharply again. Gauche's heart skipped a beat, thinking it was his fault again, but fortunately, this time it was someone else. Gauche, imitating what everyone else had done earlier when it was his turn, deliberately brought his face close to his sheet music and pretended to be deep in thought. Now, on to the next part immediately. Ready? Just as he thought, here we go, and began to play, the conductor suddenly stomped his foot loudly and started shouting. That's no good. It's absolutely unacceptable. This part is the heart of the piece, and you're making such a mess of it. Gentlemen, we only have 10 days left until the performance. If we, who are professional musicians, lose to a group of amateurs like the cobblers and the sugar shop apprentices, what will happen to our reputation? Hey, Gauche, you're a real problem, you know. There's absolutely no expression in your playing. Whether it's anger or joy, there's not a shred of emotion coming through. And you just can't seem to match with the other instruments. It's like you're always dragging a loose shoelace, trailing behind everyone else. This is a problem. You really need to get it together. If our esteemed Venus Orchestra ends up being criticized because of you, it would be truly unfair to everyone else. Alright, that's it for today's practice. Take a break and be in the box promptly at 6. Everyone bowed, then lit cigarettes or struck matches and left for somewhere else. Gauche, holding his shabby cello that looked like an old box, turned toward the wall, twisted his mouth, and let tears fall in streams. But pulling himself together, he began to quietly play the section they had just practiced, starting from the beginning, all alone. Later that night, Gauche returned to his home, carrying something large and black on his back. His home, if it could be called that, was a broken-down watermill on the outskirts of town by the river. Gauche lived there all alone. In the mornings, he would tend to the small garden around the mill, pruning the tomato vines or picking insects off the cabbages, and then, in the afternoons, he would always head out. When Gauche entered his home and lit the lamp, he unwrapped the black bundle he had brought back. It was nothing unusual, just the same rugged cello from earlier that evening. Gauche gently placed the cello on the floor, then suddenly grabbed a cup from the shelf and drank deeply from a bucket of water. After shaking his head once, he sat down on a chair and, with the ferocity of a tiger, began playing the sheet music from the afternoon. Turning the pages as he played, he alternated between playing and thinking, pouring all his effort into reaching the end, only to start again from the beginning. He continued playing over and over, fiercely and relentlessly, the sound roaring like a storm. By the time it was well past midnight, Gauche no longer even knew if he was still playing or not. His face was bright red, his eyes bloodshot, and his expression so intense that he looked as though he might collapse at any moment. Just then, someone knocked softly on the door behind him. "Gauche, is that you?" Gauche shouted, half dazed as if in a dream. However, the door slowly creaked open, and in walked a large calico cat, one Gauche had seen 5 or 6 times before. The cat carried a half-ripe tomato, apparently from Gauche's garden, struggling under its weight. It placed the tomato in front of Gauche and said, "Ah, what a tiring job. Transporting this was no easy task." "What?" Gauche asked. "This is a gift for you. Please eat it," the calico cat said. Gauche, still frustrated from the afternoon, let out an angry outburst all at once. "Who told you to bring me a tomato, you little pest? First of all, I wouldn't eat anything brought by the likes of you. And that tomato, it's from my garden. What's the big idea, picking one that's not even ripe? You're the one who's been chewing on the tomato stalks and messing up my plants, aren't you? Get out of here, you stupid cat." The cat hunched its shoulders and squinted its eyes but smirked slightly around its mouth as it replied, "Sensei, getting so angry will only harm your health. Instead, why don't you try playing Schumann's Träumerei? I'll listen to it for you." "How dare you say such cheeky things, you insolent cat?" The cellist, annoyed, paused for a moment to think about what he should do with this impudent feline. "No need to hold back. Please, go ahead. You see, I just can't sleep without hearing your music, Sensei." "Insolent, insolent, insolent." Gauche turned bright red and stomped his foot, shouting just like the conductor had earlier in the day, but suddenly, he changed his mind and said, "Fine, I'll play." For some reason, Gauche locked the door and shut all the windows, then took out his cello and turned off the light. The faint light of the waning moon, just past its 20th day, streamed halfway into the room from outside. "What do you want me to play?" "Träumerei, romantic, composed by Schumann," the cat calmly replied, wiping its mouth. "I see. So this Träumerei must sound something like this, then." For some reason, the cellist first tore a handkerchief into pieces and stuffed them tightly into his ears. Then, with the force of a raging storm, he began to play a piece called The Tiger Hunt in India. The cat tilted its head and listened for a while, but suddenly its eyes began to flash pock pock pock. Then, in a burst, it leapt toward the door. With a loud thud, it slammed its body against the door, but it wouldn't open. The cat, realizing this was the greatest mistake of its life, began to panic. Sparks flew from its eyes and forehead, crackling and scattering in all directions. Then, sparks began to shoot out from the cat's whiskers and nose as well. The cat, feeling ticklish, made a face as if it were about to sneeze. After a moment, it seemed to realize that it couldn't stay idle and began pacing hurriedly, as if in a panic. Gauche, thoroughly entertained by the situation, played with even greater intensity. "Sensei, that's enough. Please, enough already. For mercy's sake, stop. I promise I won't ever conduct you again." "Silence. I'm just about to catch the tiger." The cat, writhing in pain, leapt into the air, spun around, and pressed its body against the wall. Wherever it touched the wall, a faint blue glow lingered for a moment. Eventually, the cat began spinning around Gauche like a windmill, whirling round and round. Gauche himself started to feel a bit dizzy and finally said, "All right, I'll let you off now," as he brought his playing to a reluctant stop. The cat, suddenly calm as if nothing had happened, remarked, "Sensei, tonight's performance was rather peculiar, wasn't it?" The cellist felt a surge of irritation again, but pretending not to care, he pulled out a rolled cigarette and placed it in his mouth. Then, he took out a match and said, "Well, did it leave you feeling unwell? Stick out your tongue and let me see." The cat, as if mocking him, stuck out its long, pointed tongue with a blurg. "Ah, I see. It's a bit roughened up," the cellist remarked. Without warning, he struck the match against the cat's tongue with a shhht and lit his cigarette. The cat, utterly shocked, flailed its tongue like a windmill, then staggered toward the door. It rammed its head against the door with a loud thud, wobbled back, then charged again, only to wobble once more. Over and over, it crashed into the door, desperately trying to find a way to escape. Gauche watched this spectacle with amusement for a while, then said, "I'll let you out, but don't come back again, you fool." The cellist opened the door and watched as the cat dashed away like the wind into the grass. He chuckled briefly, then, feeling a sense of relief, finally fell into a deep sleep. The next night, Gauche returned once again, carrying the black-wrapped cello on his back. After drinking water in large gulps, he began playing the cello vigorously, just as he had the previous night. Midnight soon passed, then 1 o'clock, and even 2 o'clock, yet Gauche showed no signs of stopping. As Gauche played on, unaware of the time or even whether he was truly playing or not, the sound of someone tapping coke on the attic above echoed. "Is it you again, cat? Haven't you learned your lesson?" Gauche shouted. Suddenly, there was a plop from a hole in the ceiling, and a gray bird descended. When it landed on the floor, Gauche saw that it was a cuckoo. "Now even birds are coming. What do you want?" Gauche asked. "I want to learn music," the cuckoo replied calmly. Gauche laughed. Music, you say. All you do is cuckoo, cuckoo. That's your whole song, isn't it? The cuckoo replied earnestly. Yes, that's exactly it, but it's very difficult, you see. Difficult? Nonsense. You birds just screech endlessly, and there's nothing to your singing at all, Gauche said. But that's the difficult part, the cuckoo explained. For instance, the way we say cuckoo this way versus cuckoo that way sounds completely different, doesn't it? It doesn't sound different at all, Gauche replied. Then you simply don't understand. Among us, every single cuckoo, say it 10,000 times, will be different each time. Well, suit yourself. If you're that aware of it, why bother coming to me? Because I want to master do re mi fa precisely, said the cuckoo earnestly. Do re mi fa, my foot, Gauche retorted. I absolutely need to learn it before going abroad, the cuckoo said. Abroad, my foot. Sensei, please teach me do re mi fa. I'll follow along and sing. Annoying little thing. Fine, I'll play it 3 times, and then you'd better leave immediately. Gauche picked up his cello, adjusted the strings with a few boron sounds, and played do re mi fa sol la ti do. The cuckoo flapped its wings frantically in excitement. That's not it, that's not it, it's completely wrong, cried the cuckoo. Annoying thing. Then you try it, Gauche said. Like this. The cuckoo bent its body forward, paused for a moment in concentration, and then let out a single cuckoo. What's that? Is that supposed to be do re mi fa? So to you, do re mi fa and Beethoven's Sixth Symphony are the same thing, huh? No, they're different, the cuckoo replied. How are they different, then? The difficult part is when you string a lot of them together, the cuckoo explained. So, like this? Gauche said, picking up his cello again and playing cuckoo, 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 cuckoo in succession. The cuckoo was overjoyed, and partway through, began calling out cuckoo, 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 cuckoo with all its might, bending its body with every effort as if it could go on forever. Eventually, Gauche's hands began to hurt, and he stopped, saying, Hey, cut it out already. The cuckoo, looking disappointed, narrowed its eyes and continued crying softly for a while longer. Finally, it muttered, Cuckoo, cuckoo, choo 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 choo, and then stopped. Gauche, now thoroughly annoyed, snapped. Hey, bird, if you're done, then leave already. Please, play it just one more time. Yours is good, but it's a little different, the cuckoo pleaded. What? I'm not the one learning from you. Go home already, Gauche barked. Please, just one more time. I beg you, please, the cuckoo said, bowing its head repeatedly. All right, but this is the last time, Gauche said, readying his bow. The cuckoo let out a small cook of breath and said, Then, please make it as long as possible, bowing deeply again. This is so tiresome, Gauche muttered with a wry smile as he began to play once more. The cuckoo once again threw itself into the performance, bending its body and earnestly calling out, Cuckoo, 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 with all its might. At first, Gauche felt annoyed and frustrated, but as he kept playing, a thought suddenly crossed his mind. Perhaps the bird was closer to the true essence of do re mi fa. The more he played, the more it felt like the cuckoo's calls had a certain correctness, as if they were better suited to the music than his own playing. If I keep doing this nonsense, I might turn into a bird myself, Gauche thought, and abruptly stopped playing his cello. The cuckoo, as if it had been struck on the head, swayed unsteadily for a moment. Then, much like before, it let out a strained call. Cuckoo, 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 choo 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 choo, and then stopped. It gazed at Gauche with a look of resentment. Why did you stop? Even the weakest of us will keep calling until blood comes from our throats, the cuckoo said. How dare you speak so boldly? Do you think I can keep up this foolishness forever? Get out of here already. Look, it's almost morning, Gauche shouted, pointing at the window. The eastern sky was faintly turning silver, with dark clouds racing northward across it. Then, just until the sun rises, please, just one more time. Only a little, the cuckoo pleaded, bowing its head once again. Shut up, don't get so full of yourself, you stupid bird. If you don't leave right now, I'll pluck you and have you for breakfast, Gauche shouted, stomping hard on the floor. The cuckoo, suddenly startled, leapt into the air and flew straight toward the window. With a loud crash, it slammed its head against the glass and fell to the floor with a thud. What a fool, flying into the glass like that, Gauche muttered, hurriedly standing up to open the window. However, this window wasn't the kind that easily slid open whenever one wanted. As Gauche struggled, rattling the window frame repeatedly, the cuckoo crashed into the glass again with a thud and fell back to the floor. Looking closer, he noticed a bit of blood trickling from the base of its beak. Wait, I'm opening it now, Gauche said, finally managing to open the window about 2 inches. At that moment, the cuckoo got up, staring intently at the eastern sky beyond the window as if determined that this time, no matter what, it would succeed. With all the strength it could muster, it launched itself into the air with a powerful flap. Of course, it crashed into the glass even harder than before, and this time the cuckoo fell to the floor, lying motionless for a while. "Wait, I'm opening it now," Gauche repeated, finally managing to open the window about 2 inches. At that moment, the cuckoo stood up again, fixing its gaze on the eastern sky beyond the window, as if determined that this time it would succeed no matter what. Summoning all its strength, it leapt into the air with a burst of energy. Of course, it crashed into the glass even harder than before, and this time it fell to the floor and lay there, motionless for a while. Gauche reached out, intending to catch the cuckoo and release it through the door, but suddenly the cuckoo opened its eyes and leapt away. Once again, it seemed ready to fling itself at the glass. Without thinking, Gauche lifted his foot and kicked the window hard. With an ear-splitting crash, 2 or 3 panes of glass shattered and fell, taking the entire window frame with them. Through the now open and empty window, the cuckoo shot outside like an arrow. And the cuckoo flew straight ahead, farther and farther, until it finally disappeared from sight. Gauche stared outside in astonishment for a while, then collapsed onto the corner of the room and fell asleep on the spot. The next night, Gauche played his cello until past midnight. Exhausted, he drank a glass of water, when suddenly there came another knock at the door. Determined to scare off anything that might come, just as he had driven away the cuckoo the previous night, Gauche waited, holding his glass and watching the door. The door creaked open slightly, and a young tanuki stepped inside. Gauche opened the door a bit wider, stomped his foot, and bellowed, "Hey, tanuki, do you know what tanuki stew is?" The young tanuki, looking bewildered, sat neatly on the floor and tilted its head, as if trying to figure out what Gauche meant. After a while, it said, "I don't know what tanuki stew is." Gauche, seeing the innocent look on its face, almost burst out laughing but forced himself to keep a stern expression. "Then I'll teach you," he said. "Tanuki stew is when a tanuki like you is boiled with cabbage and salt until it's nice and tender, ready for me to eat." The young tanuki, still puzzled, replied, "But my father told me that Mr. Gauche is a very kind person and not scary at all, so I should go and learn from you." At this, Gauche couldn't help but burst into laughter. "What are you supposed to learn then? I'm busy, you know, and tired," he said. The tanuki, suddenly emboldened, stepped forward. "I'm in charge of the snare drum, you see. I was told to come and match my rhythm to your cello." "There's no snare drum anywhere," Gauche said. "Here it is," the young tanuki replied, pulling out 2 sticks from behind its back. "And what are you going to do with those?" "Well then, please play the Merry Coachman," said the tanuki. "What's the Merry Coachman? Some kind of jazz?" "Ah, this sheet music," the tanuki said, producing a piece of sheet music from behind its back as well. Gauche took the sheet and burst out laughing. "What a strange piece," Gauche muttered. "All right, let's do this. So, you're going to play the snare drum?" Curious to see what the young tanuki would do, Gauche began playing, occasionally glancing in its direction. The tanuki, holding its sticks, started tapping rhythmically on the bass of the cello near the bridge, keeping time with pon, pon. Surprisingly, the rhythm was quite good, and as Gauche continued playing, he found himself thinking, "This is actually pretty fun." When the piece came to an end, the young tanuki tilted its head and seemed to ponder for a moment. After a moment of thought, the young tanuki finally spoke. "Mr. Gauche, when you play the second string, it's strangely slow. It makes me feel like I'm going to trip." Gauche was startled. It was true, he had felt since the previous night that no matter how quickly he played that string, the sound always seemed slightly delayed. "Yeah, you might be right. This cello is no good," Gauche said sadly. The young tanuki, looking sympathetic, thought for a moment before saying, "I wonder what's wrong with it. Could you play it one more time?" "All right, I'll play it," Gauche replied, and began again. The tanuki tapped rhythmically as before, occasionally tilting its head and pressing its ear to the cello as if listening closely. By the time they reached the end of the piece, the eastern sky had once again begun to faintly brighten with the approach of dawn. "Ah, dawn is broken. Thank you very much," the young tanuki said hurriedly. It quickly strapped the sheet music and sticks onto its back with a rubber band, gave 2 or 3 bows, and rushed out the door. Gauche sat there in a daze for a while, breathing in the breeze that flowed through the broken glass from the night before. Then, deciding to get some rest and recover his energy before heading into town, he quickly crawled into bed. The next night, Gauche played his cello through the night once again. Near dawn, exhausted, he dozed off while still holding his sheet music. Suddenly, There was a faint knock at the door, so soft it was barely audible. However, since this had become a nightly occurrence, Gauche noticed it right away and said, "Come in." Through the crack in the door came a field mouse, leading a very small child. They scurried over to Gauche, moving cautiously but steadily, until they stood in front of him. The baby field mouse was so tiny, barely the size of an eraser, that Gauche couldn't help but laugh. Seeing this, the adult field mouse glanced around nervously, as if wondering why it had been laughed at. It approached Gauche, placed a single green chestnut in front of him, bowed politely, and said, "Sensei, this child is unwell and seems to be near death. Please, out of your kindness, heal it." "I'm no doctor," Gauche replied, slightly annoyed. Hearing this, the mother mouse lowered her head and remained silent for a moment. Then, as if gathering her courage, she said, "Sensei, that's not true. Every day, you so skillfully heal everyone's ailments, don't you?" "I have no idea what you're talking about," Gauche said, baffled. "But Sensei," the mother mouse pleaded, "thanks to you, the rabbit's grandmother recovered, and the tanuki's father got better. Even that mean old owl was healed by you. To think that only this child would be denied your help, it's far too heartbreaking." Now, you must be mistaken," Gauche said. "I've never cured an owl's illness. Of course, the tanuki's child did come last night to mimic an orchestra, but that's it. Ha ha." Gauche looked down at the baby mouse and laughed in disbelief. At this, the mother mouse began to cry. "Oh, if only this child had gotten sick earlier," the mother mouse sobbed. "Just a moment ago, you were playing so magnificently, the sound roaring through the air. But now that the child is ill, the music has stopped entirely, and no matter how much I beg, you won't play anymore. What an unlucky child." Gauche was startled and cried out, "What, are you saying that when I play the cello, it cures the illnesses of owls and rabbits? How is that even possible?" The field mouse rubbed its eyes with one paw and said, "Yes, whenever anyone around here gets sick, they crawl under your floor to be healed." "And that actually cures them?" Gauche asked, bewildered. "Yes," the mouse replied. "Some feel much better right away, with the blood flowing smoothly through their whole body, while others recover after they return home." "Ah, I see. So, when the sound of my cello roars, it works like a massage and heals your illnesses, is that it? All right, I understand. I'll do it." Gauche adjusted the strings with a few gyu-gyu sounds, then suddenly picked up the baby mouse and stuffed it through the hole in the cello. "I'll go in with my child. That's how it's done in every hospital," the mother mouse cried desperately, throwing herself onto the cello as if in a frenzy. "Do you want to go in too?" Gauche asked as he tried to push the mother mouse through the hole in the cello. However, only half of her face could fit. Flapping her limbs frantically, the mother mouse called out to her child inside. "Are you all right in there? Did you land properly, with your feet together as I always taught you?" "I'm fine. I landed well," the baby mouse replied, its voice so tiny it sounded like the buzz of a mosquito, echoing faintly from the bottom of the cello. It's fine. That's why I said not to cry," Gauche said as he set the mother mouse back down on the floor. Then, picking up his bow, he began playing a rhapsody with a thunderous go-go, gaga intensity. The mother mouse listened to the music intently, her expression full of concern. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, she pleaded. "That's enough, please. Let my child out." "Oh, so that's all it takes?" Gauche said as he tilted the cello and placed his hand near the hole, waiting. Before long, the baby mouse emerged. Gauche silently set it down on the floor. The tiny mouse had its eyes tightly shut and was trembling uncontrollably. "How was it? Are you feeling better?" he asked. The baby mouse didn't respond at all, keeping its eyes shut and trembling for a while longer. Then, suddenly, it sprang up and began to run. "Oh, you've recovered. Thank you. Thank you so much." The mother mouse ran alongside the child, but soon stopped in front of Gauche, bowing repeatedly and saying, thank you, at least 10 times. Feeling unexpectedly sympathetic, Gauche asked, "Hey, do you two eat bread?" The mother mouse looked startled and glanced around nervously before replying. No, I've heard that bread is made by kneading wheat flour and steaming or baking it until it becomes soft and fluffy, and that it's delicious. But we've never ventured into anyone's pantry, let alone dared to take anything. Especially after receiving such kindness from you, how could we ever think of doing such a thing?" "No, that's not what I meant. I was just asking if you eat it." "So, you do eat it, huh? Wait here a moment. I'll give some to your sick child," Gauche said. He set his cello down on the floor, went to the cupboard, and tore off a piece of bread. He placed it in front of the field mouse. The mouse, overwhelmed, alternated between crying, laughing, and bowing repeatedly. Finally, it carefully picked up the bread, let its child lead the way, and exited the house. Ah, even talking with mice is exhausting, Gauche muttered as he collapsed onto his bed. He quickly fell into a deep sleep, snoring loudly. 6 nights later, it was the evening of the concert. The members of the Venus Orchestra returned to the backstage waiting room behind the town hall's auditorium, their faces flushed with excitement. Each carried their instrument as they filed in from the stage. They had successfully performed Beethoven's Sixth Symphony. In the hall, the sound of applause still roared like a storm. The conductor, hands stuffed into his pockets and strolling nonchalantly among the musicians, acted as if the applause didn't matter to him at all. In truth, however, he was absolutely filled with joy. The musicians lit cigarettes, struck matches, and began putting their instruments back into their cases. Meanwhile, the applause in the hall continued, punctuated with sharp, rhythmic clapping. The applause only grew louder, rising to a level so intense it felt almost frightening, as though it were beyond control. A host, wearing a large white ribbon on his chest, entered the room and said, "They're calling for an encore. Could you play something short for them?" The conductor, his expression firm, replied, "No, that won't do. After performing such a major piece, nothing we play will satisfy us or feel right in comparison." "Then, maestro, please step out and give a brief greeting," the host suggested. "No, the conductor replied. "Hey, Gauche, go out and play something for them." "Me?" Gauche said, taken aback. "Yes, you," said the first violinist, suddenly looking up. "Go on, step out there," the conductor urged. The others forced Gauche to take his cello, opened the door, and, before he could protest further, pushed him straight onto the stage. When Gauche stepped onto the stage, carrying his battered, hole-riddled cello and looking thoroughly distressed, the audience erupted into even louder applause, as if to say, "Look at this." Some people even shouted out. "How dare they mock me like this," Gauche thought, and then muttered to himself, "All right, just you wait. I'll play the Tiger Hunt in India." Completely composed now, Gauche strode to the center of the stage. Just as he had when the cat visited him, he played the Tiger Hunt with the ferocity of an enraged elephant, pouring all his energy into the performance. However, the audience fell completely silent, listening with all their might. Gauche continued to play relentlessly. He passed the part where the cat had struggled, sparks flying from its body. He passed the part where it had thrown itself against the door repeatedly. When the piece finally ended, Gauche didn't even glance at the audience. Just like the cat had done, he swiftly grabbed his cello and darted off the stage, retreating to the dressing room. When Gauche entered the dressing room, he found the conductor and his fellow musicians sitting quietly, their eyes wide and fixed, as if they had just been through a fire. Feeling reckless, Gauche strode confidently through their midst and flopped down on the long bench on the other side of the room, crossing his legs as he sat. Then, all at once, everyone turned to look at him. Their faces were serious, none of them seemed to be laughing or mocking him. "What a strange night this is," Gauche thought. Then the conductor stood up and said, "Gauche, that was excellent. Even with a piece like that, everyone out there was listening quite seriously. You've polished it a lot in just a week or 10 days. Compared to 10 days ago, it's like the difference between a baby and a soldier. You could have done this all along if you'd wanted to, couldn't you?" The other musicians also stood up, coming over to Gauche, and said, "That was great. Well, I'm only able to do this because my body is strong. If it were someone ordinary, they'd have died from it," the conductor said from across the room. Later that night, Gauche returned to his home. He drank a large gulp of water, then opened the window. Gazing out at the distant sky, where he thought he had seen the cuckoo fly away, he sighed and said, "Ah, cuckoo, I'm sorry about that time. It wasn't that I was angry with you."
Until we meet again, may the stories of Japan inspire your days. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales.